In this lesson, we're going to work on deconstructing a synthesis prompt, and we're going to be using these steps right here to guide us. So step 1 says we're going to read for ideas. Then step 2, we read for perspectives regarding the issue. Then we take a stand based on those perspectives, identify the question or our command and conquer, and then we'll finalize by writing a thesis statement. So let's start off with step 1. We're going to read, and as I read, I'm going to be highlighting some key ideas or big ideas that I could develop my argument around. It is inarguably human nature to explore the unknown. This desire has manifested itself as sailors set to the seas to search for new lands, and as in more recent history, astronauts have broken through the atmosphere on quests to explore the observable universe. And yet, the unknown is not limited to concrete physical destinations. Rather, it extends to how individuals wrestle with the most enigmatic area of their lives, death. Throughout generations, artists have been at the forefront of exploring and reasoning with death in all of its forms, and this has rapidly increased recently due to the rise in the consumption of entertainment. Ominous and foreboding creations have become remarkably profitable, especially around Halloween. Now, some argue that the consistent bombardment of horrific images and deathly contemplations is producing a society that is either overly anxious or desensitized, while others suggest that creating and consuming such media is just one of the ways that humans learn to deal with life and the inevitable end that claims all. Carefully read the following 6 sources, including the introductory information for each source. Write an essay that synthesizes material from at least 3 of the sources and develops your position on how commercializing fear and horror affects the way individuals respond to the unknown. Make sure that your argument is central. Use the sources to illustrate and support your reasoning. Avoid merely summarizing the sources. Indicate clearly which sources you are drawing from, whether through direct quotation, paraphrase, or summary. You may cite the sources as source A, source B, or by using the descriptions in the parentheses. So, some ideas that we identified were human nature, unknown, desire, quests, artists, death, consumption of entertainment, profitable, anxious, desensitized, and deathly contemplations. Then we have fear and horror also. What I want you to do is pause the video here and list out those ideas below the direction statement. So these are the ideas you should have written down. If you don't have them written down, make sure to add them to your list. And then what you would do when you're writing is decide which of the maybe 3 or 4 you want to really focus in on. So I'm going to say that I really want to focus in on human nature, death, horror, fear, and then this idea that we want to explore, and then also this harm that people say that it causes, which is anxiety and a lack of empathy. Now from here, we then move on to step 2, which is looking at the perspectives that are mentioned within the prompt. And the perspectives are often mentioned in the introduction, and it's usually at the end of the introduction. So here it says, now some argue that the consistent bombardment of horrific images and deathly contemplations is producing a society that is either overly anxious or desensitized, while others suggest that creating and consuming such media is just one of the ways that humans learn to deal with life and the inevitable end that claims all. So from here, we're going to list the 2 major perspectives that we identified here, and then we're going to also think about some assumptions that are being made. So here are the perspectives that you should have written onto your paper. The fact that they desensitize the audience, increase anxiety, or also the alternate view that they help us learn to accept our own mortality. Now from here, we want to list a couple assumptions that we could make based on these perspectives. So some assumptions that I identified is if we believe that it helps us learn to accept our own mortality, then one assumption we're making is that death is a mysterious part of life. Also, if we believe that it helps us learn to accept the unknown, then we are also assuming that humans do crave adventure and mystery. And then lastly, if we think that it desensitizes us or increases anxiety, then we believe that media influences how we respond to the world. So those are some assumptions that are being made within the prompt. Now what we're going to do is decide how we feel about these. So anything that we agree with, we're going to put a plus next to. Anything we disagree with, we're going to put a minus next to. And if we're kind of in between, we will put a plus and minus next to it. So you'll do that for the assumptions and then also for the perspectives.
Now from here, you would write a thesis statement based on the command and conquer question. But let's go back and see what that command and conquer question is. So you'll find the command question in the assignment part. Let me highlight it in blue for you, where it says develops your position on how commercializing fear and horror affects the ways individuals respond to the unknown and the macabre. So here, that is our command. Now from this command, we are going to come up with our conquer questions. Now the conquer questions are implied questions that must be answered so that you can complete the command task. So they usually begin with what or how.
So one question I can come up with is, what effects does horror-based entertainment have on an individual's response to the unknown and the horrifying nature of death? And I'm just getting that from the ideas within the command. Another question is about the ways that we respond to the unknown. So let's write that one. What are the ways we respond to the unknown and the horrifying? And then if we answer both of these questions in our thesis statement, we will have a strong thesis statement that responds to the command. So what I want you to do now is try out responding to these questions so that you can compose your thesis statement. Remember that in the argument deconstruction lessons, we talked about ways to respond in a thesis if you need some extra help for that.